So Joe Rogan is hearing rumors about Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall, and he says that the rumor is Jon Jones is asking for $30 million to fight Tom Aspinall. Will the UFC meet his demands? $30 million, a lot of money comparatively for UFC fighters to earn, especially ones at the top. Daniel Cormier even weighed in at 700 pounds. No, I'm joking. No, he weighed in on this topic and said... that was on top of my head. That was pretty good. Daniel Cormier weighed in on this topic and said that he doesn't think the UFC... he doesn't... DC's fat, man. I need to get in shape as well, though. You know what I mean? We're on this journey together, DC. DC says... Can I have another burger? I don't know. No, DC said that he doesn't think the UFC are going to pay Jon Jones $30 million. But if Jon Jones asks for that, the UFC could meet him at maybe 20 or 15. A lot of people are saying that this is the only way that Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall is going to happen, is if the, Turkey Al-Sheikh gets involved and pays out a grand sum of money. I think that will be quite likely in terms of what's going to happen here, because he seems to be parting with tens of millions of dollars every couple of months to make massive, massive fights. So we're going to go through a couple of clips, and I'm also going to give my opinion on what I think the money situation is, because I have evidence to suggest that I know exactly how much each UFC fighter is on, because I have my own system, okay? When it comes to UFC fighter pay, I know what kind of contract stuff goes on. I know how many fights are on each one. I know how many incremental improvements of money per fight come up whenever a fighter wins a fight. I know how many fights they have to have before a renegotiation happens. I have some kind of general idea, and I'll prove that at some point in the video. We also had this guy saying that it's going to be an international fight week, UFC 316. This guy hasn't had a single thing he said come true yet, but, he's still trying. Maybe they're just onto him, and they're like zigging when he zags, like, damn, this Ruben Carter guy's onto us. Let's completely change the fight that we were going to make and put out something completely different. But this is a good image of Jones and Aspinall next to each other. It's a video about Jones and Aspinall, so I have to weigh in. Joe Rogan says this, and let's start the video here. And first of all, there's parts of this clip that really annoy me. But let's listen to what Joe Rogan said.
Is he doing Proria or Aspinall?
Aspinall.
Yeah.
I think it's...
Why is it always these people asking Joe Rogan these questions? Is he going to do Peoria? I'm sure Jones would love to do him, but I hate that whenever I hear Joe Rogan weigh in on any type of MMA thing, there's always someone like, so is he going to fight Volkanovski or is he... or Makhachev? And I'm not talking like Chael Sonnen's always asking him the questions, but either way, I'm going to use the reason he mispronounced it in a second. But Joe Rogan goes on to say,
yeah,
I think it's going to be Aspinall. I think they're trying to come to some sort of an agreement. The rumor is that he wants $30 million, and that the UFC is going to pay it,
and that the UFC is going to pay him. That's pretty interesting. That's the rumor. So the rumor isn't just that he's asking for $30 million. The rumor is that he's also going to be paid $30 million to fight Tom Aspinall, which is interesting, of course. It's not lost on me that he's only having these massive demands for a massive amount more money to fight Tom Aspinall and not to fight anyone else. Where were these demands when it was time to fight Stipe or Cyril Gane or even Pereira instead of Tom Aspinall? These demands did not exist. And Tom Aspinall, of course, the reason why that is because Tom Aspinall is such a threat to Jon Jones, and he understands that, which is why he would have rather fought someone else that he no longer can do, because the time is now. But Joe Rogan says that's the rumor. It then goes on to another moment here as well.
hopefully.
If I give him the opportunity to fight me, I want to be so compensated. I want to say it, I want that fuck you money, to the point where if I won or lost, that it really wouldn't matter.
I agree with.
So, that whole quote, words that stuck out to me were, if I lost, it really wouldn't matter. Those are the last words that Jon Jones just said. So the fact that he's asking for this crazy amount of money is because he understands. For maybe the first time in his career, of course he had those dreams before the Rampage Jackson fight, but that's when he was on the come up and he hadn't really, well, not on the come up, he was already a champion, but he hadn't really proven himself if you know what I'm saying, as this dominant force that's reigning. Like, he didn't have that ego of the long reigning champion yet. So he still looked up to some of these other guys rather than being looked up to himself in the eyes of other fighters instead. But we never really hear these type of language from Jon Jones. If I lose, I'd like it not to matter because I've earned so much money. So he does understand Tom Aspinall's a threat.
With him, though, him and Pereira would be the
Pereira. Yeah.
Sorry, would be the fight everyone wants to see.
That is, I'm not actually going to say anything about this. I am, but this speaks for itself. The people wanting Jones versus Pereira instead of Jones versus Aspinall. This whole sentence that he just said speaks for itself. The way I think about it.
I agree with him, though. Him and Pereira would be the
Pereira. Yeah.
Sorry, would be the fight everyone wants to see.
Yes, every casual in this world that can't pronounce Pereira's name. That's the one. It's Jones and Peoria that everyone wants to see. Yeah, that's the one we're so Just how will Jones figure out Alex Pereira's style? By shooting a takedown within the first 30 seconds and Cyril garning him. I just need to see it, you guys. Come on. I know they're both big names, but I want to see these top dogs tested in the sport. We move on to DC's comments about this as well. He doesn't think that Jon Jones is going to get the 30 million. Okay? This is DC weighing in on the topic.
You guys right now, as a person that has been involved in big fights, a person that has sold pay-per-views, a person that at his time was at the top of the pay scale in the UFC as the
pay scale, okay.
Heavyweight and light heavyweight champion. $30 million was literally a world away from anything we were making. I remember when I got paid in New York. I got like a big bump to take a fight on 3 weeks' notice, which ultimately became my salary. And people were astounded with the number. But I will tell you, it was a fraction of what that number that he's asking for is.
So Jones is asking for 30 million. And DC says this is a world away from what champions earn, and even big name champions in big pay-per-view spots earn. I don't think it's too far off. Now, DC speaks about the time that he stepped up at MSG and took a huge fight. I think he's talking about the Derek Lewis fight that he took, which I believe was UFC 230. I think at one point the main event was supposed to be like Shevchenko versus Maya or something along those lines. And the UFC was basically like, we're sorry for announcing this. We apologize. We'll just put together something else and pay DC a crazy amount of money to fight Derek Lewis instead. So that kind of stepped up and saved the card. So he's obviously going to earn a little bit more. When he says a world away, I believe DC was paid in the late single-digit millions to fight Derek Lewis on that card. Probably 7 mil, 8 mil, something along those lines. I have some understanding of how much the fighters earn because it's a constant discussion in my live chats. And this leads for me to constantly be looking things up on how the contracts work and stuff like that. So I think DC was paid late single-digit millions. If you're asking what McGregor was earning in his UFC career, I would say he made $20 million to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov. I think we're talking in that range. Maybe even 30 million, sort of between that sort of level, 20 to 30, something along those lines. Don't message me, you cunt. Something along those lines, 20 to 30 million. I'm doing my thing and they're throwing me out of my flow state. It's a problem, okay? I don't know if you even heard the fucking message go off. Either way. I have friends, guys, I promise. I think McGregor was earning between 20, 30 million for the Khabib fight. Jon Jones, I think, probably makes 10 mil for the Stipe Miocic fight. Maybe late single-digit millions. That's probably the range that we're talking about here. Jones probably makes between 7 to 10 million. I know you may hear other numbers that come out and, you know, everyone sees these massive disclosed numbers, and basically the rule is if the numbers are good and it looks like the fighters are being paid well, then the entire community rejects them as fake. And then if the numbers are really bad and looks like the fighters aren't being paid enough, the entire MMA community believes that they are true. I reckon Jones made between 7 and 10 million to fight Stipe Miocic. Okay. I think he made somewhere in the range of 4 to 5 million to fight Cyril Gane. I think Jones is one of the ones, because he's been champion for so long, they have to improve the amount of money he makes over time because they need to incentivize him continuing his career. Other champions aren't going to be making that. Other champions are probably going to be getting $1 million or $2 million. You know, maybe less. I don't know. I don't know if Pantoja at this point maybe making a flat mil. Maybe earlier on in his career when he was defending against like Steve Erceg, which isn't even that earlier on, but maybe then we were talking in the 500K to $1 million range. I think fighters are getting paid a lot more in general now. I know this because, sorry for the jump scare, I'll put this over this abomination on the left. I know how much fighters are getting paid. I'm going to play this clip from my interview with Manny Moicano quite long ago where he asks me how much I think he's getting paid.
Not mine.
Okay, I don't know how much you're making against Dober, but
I did.
You definitely make.
How much do you think I make against Toby?
How much do I think you made against Dober?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you say higher or lower?
What?
And then you tell me higher or lower.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
I think you made... And I go into some searching into my database. I reckon you made $250,000 against Drew Dober. $250,000.
$250,000. How much is a $250,000?
250,000.
You're right. you
I know things, you know?
Yeah. Okay. You're right.
So he makes some money. So Moicano's making some bank, and this is for the Dober fight, of course, so he's going to be making a little bit more now. But I know the natural progression of these pay structures. I think they could pay the 30 mil. I think they could incorporate the Saudis slightly. Like this fight could take place in Saudi Arabia or Abu Dhabi or wherever they want to put on the event. Probably in Saudi Arabia, right? And I think it could be in July or June. Will it be International Fight Week? I think that'd be a flex for the oil money guys. You know what I mean? For the princes over there. That'd be a big flex for them. For Turki Al-Sheikh, if he could have International Fight Week, the UFC International Fight Week event in Saudi Arabia instead of in America, Las Vegas, where it normally historically is. That would be a big flex for them. I'm sure he would shift a 10 mil, 20 mil to make that happen for him. So I do think this is very likely to happen. And I think Tom Aspinall's silence is kind of giving energy that this is actually happening behind the scenes, that there's actual negotiations going on. And he has mentioned that Dana White seems very positive that this is going to happen as well. So maybe Jones's whole ducking thing. Does he consider Tom Aspinall a threat? Yes. Does he consider Tom the biggest threat of his entire career? Yes. He understands what this is. This is time for me to be a bit of a sacrificial lamb for some other guy to make a career out of. Will he defy the odds and defeat Tom Aspinall, even though the odds are going to be pretty close? Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's 70-30 Tom Aspinall likelihood of him winning. I think this is a very even fight. I'm leaning towards Tom Aspinall because I just think he's too devastating on the feet early for Jon Jones to survive. And I think he's got the grappling background to at least not be Cyril Garned in round one, which will give him enough time to have exchanges on the feet where I think he will take advantage of Jon Jones's poor boxing defense that I think is ready to be exposed by a proper athletic heavyweight that has takedown defense. So I think it will happen. And I think the Saudis will shift a bit of money. You know, we see, the 30 million rumors that we're talking about. And DC says that he doesn't think, he thinks they'll meet him at 20 to 15.
Was nowhere near that. Let me look at the gate for Madison's. According to CEO that's a massive gate.
I think it was at 16 million, the gate, which is the ticket sales in the last Jon Jones event for the Stipe Miocic fight.
From Jon Jones. Okay. How many pay-per-views did they sell? Now, when you start looking at it like that, you start going, I don't know if his ask is as crazy as people are saying.
It's true.
Rogan thinks that the UFC will pay the $30 million to get Jon Jones in there with Tom Aspinall. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure he gets to 30, but if you ask for 30 and you get 20 or you get 15, that's a win for Jon Jones on his way out.
I think Jon Jones gets to 30, DC. I think he does. I think DC is, of course, he's in the know. Is he dead on with what Moicano's making per fight and knows it based on the contract scale? Because typically, I'll maybe talk about how the contracts work or how they used to work when I first understood them a while ago. I think they'll give him the 30 mil, DC. I think that's not much to ask. And I think the UFC were maybe thinking Jones would ask for more. I think the UFC were thinking this fucking goofball is going to ask for fucking 50 million. I thought Jones was going to be talking 50 mil. Like a proper boxing heavyweight paycheck for this fight, and then he would hope that maybe the Saudis would fund a lot of it and the UFC would fund maybe under half of it towards how much he was getting paid. I think the UFC pays this because not only do they not really have to even pay Tom Aspinall that much, they're probably going to give him a couple million for this fight. Like Tom Aspinall, maybe he gets a share of the pay-per-view because he defended the interim belt. That would be huge for him in this Jon Jones fight. But he'll probably be looking at 2 to 3 mil. It's not going to be anything crazy for Tom Aspinall. So they don't have to worry about that. It's not like they're putting together 2 huge names that are going to be tricky to get the money for. Aspinall can get paid regular championship wage. I reckon they pay 30 mil because they're not just paying Jon Jones for the fight. If it cost him an extra 10 million to ensure the health of the heavyweight division moving forward and the health of the UFC having the premier heavyweight division moving forward, they'll do an extra 10 mil for that. PFL's paying out money beyond belief for Francis Ngannou. Who knows who he's going to be fighting next? There's no interest behind that. But they do have Ngannou. They need Jones Aspinall. What they can't have is Jones dipping right now and Aspinall versus Jailton Almeida or Cyril Gane, because Cyril Gane just got fucking a gifted robbery decision against Alexander Volkov. It would have been bad if Volkov beat Cyril Gane, which is definitely why they robbed Alexander Volkov. The UFC always gets what they want out of these bad decisions. It always benefits the bigger star. Nearly every single time, or at least like 99 out of 100 times, these robberies that you just can't understand always benefit the star of the UFC and never go against their wishes. So that's not really any hype right now at heavyweight. They need the extra money to build this fight. And this will carry them into July. There's no rush for this fight as long as we know it's happening. So this can carry us and keep the heavyweight divisions, the conversations around the heavyweight division active, the heavyweight division's relevancy in general in the spotlight, the relevancy will be up. This can carry us until July, just having conversations about the fight if we know it's going to go down. And it'll also mean that the next option for Tom Aspinall in the UFC in their heavyweight division won't be Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane, who we know isn't the top dog because he's lost to Ngannou, even though I thought he should have won. Both guys had a shitty performance. I think Ngannou was injured to his knee as well. Either way, they have Cyril Gane, who has a loss to Ngannou, and also got destroyed by Jon Jones. So if Tom Aspinall beats Cyril Gane, it doesn't put him above them. They don't move on. They have a shadow of a heavyweight champion, or they have a heavyweight champion in the shadow of Ngannou or Jon Jones, which is not what they want. So they can have Alexander, they could have had Alexander Volkov, which would have been worse because Aspinall's already beaten him and it doesn't really prove anything in comparison to Ngannou and Jon Jones. So Aspinall needs to take out Jon Jones. That's the best case scenario for the UFC, in my opinion. Because otherwise it's that Cyril Gane and Jailton Almeida tossed around another morbidly obese guy. Don't worry, DC, you're safe. See that shocked expression when I said that? Jailton Almeida's not in the room with us, DC. Either way, I feel like Tom Aspinall needs to take out Jon Jones. That's the best thing for the heavyweight division right now. And if he does, you can call him the premier heavyweight on earth. He's the best heavyweight on earth. Look what he did to this guy. If he beats Cyril Gane afterwards, and maybe this would be better for the UFC heavyweight division because giving Gane a title shot right now is a no-go. Let's just call it what it is. I think we need to see like a Jailton Almeida get a win over someone who he's fighting on the card this weekend. I can't even remember the name of the guy that he's fighting on the card this weekend, but it's someone somewhat relevant in the heavyweight division. It's not Jairzinho. It's not Curtis Blades. He's fighting some fat guy that is a roid cheat. I'm cycling through some of these heavyweights in my head, and I can't think who Jailton Almeida is fighting right now. It must be like a Tybura or a... Maybe it's Tybura. No, it's Sergey Spivak. So if you beat Sergey Spivak, then do him versus Gane in the meantime while you do Jones versus Tom Aspinall. I think they do it. I think they pay 30 mil. If you want to know why I knew what Moicano was on, sorry to put your business out there, Moik, but I mean, the interview has 250,000 views, so it's already out there. And you acknowledged it and said how much you were earning. UFC paychecks work in interesting ways. But when I understood them a while ago, which I think is different now, they worked like this. And I understand championship wage, and I think that, you know, McGregor was on early points in his championship run. He was on like the mid-millions, you know what I mean? A few million. It was a different time back then. And then eventually around the Alvarez time, I'm thinking we're closer to 10. And then around the Habib time, I think we're around 20 million for McGregor's payout. I think Jones has just hit the 10 million mark for the Stipe fight, maybe 8, 9, 10 million region. Before that, during his like Santos, Anthony Smith, Dominic Reyes run, I think we were talking more about 4, from probably starting at 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 region of the millions that he was earning per fight. Before that, I think he was earning a couple of million for some of his defenses earlier in his career. But when it comes to UFC paychecks, at least for the most of the company, because the heavyweights earn a little bit more, it typically goes 10 for 10. This is how it used to when I understood it, when I first really got into it, which is probably about, when I really got into understanding fighter pay, it was probably about 8 years ago. So, Jesus, I'm old. 10 for 10, 12 for 12 if you win your debut. Then it would go 14 for 14. That was typically the result of your first 3 UFC fights if you won them all and you just signed as like a fighter below 170 or including 170. If you were a heavyweight, it might go something like 14 for 14, 16 for 16, 20 for 20, which is kind of the natural pay that it is now. But when it comes to how fighter pay works and how I figured out Moicano's fighter pay dead on using my calculation and my Excel spreadsheets, it used to go, when Moicano was signing up for the UFC, 10 for 10, 12 for 12 if you win. If you win that 12 for 12, you'd get 14 for 14. You know, this isn't including Venom bonuses or Reebok bonuses, which would probably be a couple of thousand for your first few fights each. Then if you won all those 3, you would probably be looking to jump to like 25 for 25, then incrementally increase that to by 5 each time, 30 for 30, 35, 35. If you won that, you would maybe try and renegotiate for 55, 55 and jump. So instead of increasing from 35, 35 to the 40 for 40, you would then say, okay, I want an improvement. And they would meet you at 55, 55 from 35, 35. And then your increments are in 10, 55, 55, 65, 65, 75, 75. Then, you know, you jump to 95, 95 on your next contract or however many fights you sign the contract for. But that's typically how they would work, which is how I knew Moicano was sitting at about 125, 125, which probably is going up by 10 for 10 on each for every win that he gets moving forward. Sorry to put your business out there, Money Moik, but it is what it is. So I kind of understand the paycheck, and I think they will meet him at 30 million. I think 30 million is reasonable as well. Like, it's a crazy amount, but it's not so much that Jones is asking for that makes me think Jon Jones is asking for a money he knows they'll never say, so he can use it as an excuse never to fight Tom Aspinall. He seems like he's asking for a bit of money where they might not meet it, but if they do, he'll fight. It's not the type of ask or demand that makes me think he's terrified and he just wants an excuse to say, they didn't pay me enough, and then leave. 30 mils, I think it's doable, and I think this fight will happen. That's what I think. Do I think Jon Jones knows the threat ahead of him, which is why he's asking for this? Do I think he knows that this is a true risk to his legacy compared to any other opponent in his career or on the roster right now? Absolutely, which is why we don't hear this conversation from Jon Jones for any other major fight in his career. So, yes, I do. I think that. I think he's asking for something that would make him okay if he were to get destroyed and have his legacy ruined. He's weighing that in as an option because he knows that Tom Aspinall is that threat. So hopefully it happens. If it does, I'll rally behind the promotion of it. And Jon Jones is gay. See you later, guys. Thank you for watching. Toodle pip. Goodbye. Yeah. Interesting stuff to discuss. I reckon it will happen. What do you guys think? I'm wearing a beanie now. I don't know why. Whenever I put the beanie on, I just record videos easier. I don't know why. It's hard to... let me tell you about the beanie, okay? Because it may be on for like the whole year moving forward. It's hard to go from like... Right, let me be a person here. I'm in my room talking to a camera on my own. It's weird. And when I put the beanie on, I feel like I enter like a character. You know what I'm saying? It's like giving a... I'm not saying I'm acting, but it like puts me in the zone of, I'm the MMA guru now. You know what I mean? So it's more seamless to make a video like this. But sometimes when I didn't have the beanie on, it'd be like, I don't know, I kept running into this thing where it was like, I just couldn't, you know what I mean? I needed beanie back to get my powers back. So should be more content coming this year and more streams as well. We'll see how it goes. I didn't get a buzz cut and it failed horribly, but I'm probably going to get a buzz cut now because if it goes bad, I've got the beanie on. So yeah, see you later. Goodbye. I reckon they'll pay him and he's gay and he beats up women and he's on roids as well. So even if he does beat Tom, it won't count. And if Tom beats him, it'll count even more. Touche, guys. We win no matter what. See you later, guys. Goodbye.